So now I'll demonstrate the next one. So I need to go back into the Add AQS Sampler Method form. And this time I am going to use the Manually Add and Verify Monitor Protocol Data button. And I'm going to enter my Monitor Protocol data. And that brings up this form. We're going to be making selections in these drop-down boxes to tell the toolbox what our sampling methodology is for our meteorological sampler. So the way you want to do this is start at the top of the form. And in the first section that's enclosed by the red frame, you want to click on the drop-down arrow of the tribe ID selection box. So here you want to select your tribe, and this brings up an alphabetized list of tribes available for selection, and here, this is their AQS tribal code. So I am going to be using the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation, that's tribal code 101, because that's where my imaginary sites are located, and the data I imported into the toolbox from the samplers is not actual data collected on the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation. So I'm going to find my tribe, and there we go, and click on that to select it. So the next thing I need to do is I finished adding my PM 2.5 monitor protocol data to the toolbox, but I've still got my meteorological samplers that I need to add. So I need to go back up here and start adding my meteorological data samplers. So they're located at a different site. Remember, they're located at site 0025. So the first thing I need to do is change my AQS site ID to 0025. And then when I do that, that blanks out this form, except for this one, which I will change. So I'm going to view existing monitor protocol records for this site and see what happens. So remember that I had imported from AQS my ozone, so that is there. So that's because I had imported that data from the other form in the toolbox. There is no MET data yet, so I don't have to worry about duplicating anything. So I can close this query by clicking on the lower X. So now I'm going to click on the pollutant, and I need to select MET, and then I'm going to click on the POC. And since I have already added sampling method into the toolbox for this site, there's already a POC of 1 in the list. And since I'm going to be selecting different parameter codes for my MET data than for my ozone data, I can still use the same POC of 1. So I'm going to go ahead and select the POC of 1. And then when I click on the view existing data collected for this site and pollutant, let's see what comes up. So this brings up all of my MET data, and what's really important, just like for your pollutant data, is that you confirm your units here, because you don't want to accidentally enter the wrong units. So I've got wind speeds in miles per hour, I've got ambient temperature in Fahrenheit, and I've got precipitation in inches. So I wrote that down just so I will remember when I'm selecting my units, and I'm going to close this query by clicking on the lower X. And now I move on to this next area in the red frame, and it says, is my data collected with FRM or FEM? For meteorological data, there is no FRMs or FEMs, so I select no here. And now I need to add sampling methodology, and I need to do that separately for each MET parameter I measure. So for example, for wind speed, for temperature, and for precipitation, and relative humidity, I need to add each monitor protocol record. So when I select the parameter, I see all of these different meteorological parameters available. So I'm going to start with my wind speed. And my wind speed, when I collect it, is scalar. So I'm going to select that first one, 611.01. And my method, I happen to know my method is, scroll down here, this is my method, it's 060. And my units were in miles per hour, so hour, and my sample duration is 1 hour. And then I go ahead and select Add Monitor Protocol Record to go ahead and add these data to the toolbox. And again, I'm going to get the append query, and it's going to be 1 row. Click yes on that. And now remember, I have to add my other MET parameters to the toolbox. So I need to start by clicking on the drop-down arrow for the parameter box. So I'm going to go to put in my temperature monitor protocol data. So I'm going to go into the parameter box and select temperature this time. So I want to add temperature, outdoor temperature, that's what I measure. And again, I know my method is 60, so I scroll down until I find the correct method. And my units, they were degrees Fahrenheit, and my sample duration was 1 hour. So then I'm going to click on Add Monitor Protocol Record to add those sampling methodologies to the toolbox for my temperature data. Yes, and yes again. So I would repeat this process for the other two meteorological parameters I measure, but this is the same process over and over again, and I don't want to bore you guys, so I'm going to stop here. But that's what I would do to enter all of my meteorological parameters, sampling methodologies into the toolbox. So I can go ahead and go to this continue to create AQS data files form. Since I've entered all my parameters, I can go ahead and click on this button, and that will open up this form, which we will be going over in the next module, which is very exciting. That is on how to generate AQS ready files with the toolbox. So I'm going to exit out of this form for now, and I'm going to exit out of this form, and then I'm going to close the toolbox. And the homework exercise for this module is, if you've been submitting data already to AQS, then go ahead and download and import the sampling methodologies from AQS for your sites and samplers. And like I said, that's outlined in the notes document. It's also outlined in the SOP on how to do that in AQS. If you haven't been submitting your data to AQS and you know what your sampling methodologies are, you know all that stuff, then go ahead and enter the AQS sampling methodologies into the toolbox for your sites and samplers. If you're not ready to do that yet, just let us know, and I won't be expecting any homework from you. Just let us know, and we will work with you to eventually get your sampling methodologies straightened out. So after importing or entering the sampling methodologies, just click on the Continue to Create AQS Data Files form button, and that's going to open that blank screen that I just showed you, and email a screen capture of that blank form to the instructors. And that concludes Module 10 on importing and entering AQS sampling methodology into the toolbox.